welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. Today I am doing my February 2023 wrap up where I talk about all the books I read, the things I wrote, and some personal life tidbits in the month of February. So I'm trying to keep these brief, so let's just jump right into it. So for the month of February, I thought I was really getting into a reading habit, and then I tried to read one book in particular that just slammed me right into a slump. And that is going to be first on this list because I ended up DNFing it. I didn't finish it. And that was Kiss the Fae by Natalia Jaster. So Kiss the Fae is book 1 in the Vicious Fairies series, and I started this in January. I ended up quitting pretty much the day of my book club. This was a book club read. So every month in my in-person book club, I get to pick a book, my co-host picks a book, and then we randomly choose one member to also pick our third selection. And our member this month picked Kiss the Fae because they were just going through books and had read a lot of theirs on their TBR and didn't know what else to pick. And she was funny because she profusely apologized for picking this one. A lot of us in the book club struggled with it, and for me, it just wasn't good in my opinion. I'm about 50% of the book through. I want to say it might have been 46%, but I just couldn't deal with it. The book was not well written. It was both, you knew what was going to happen and predictable because it was following the similar beats to things like The Cruel Prince and Court of Thorns and Roses, but it was also boring because you kind of expected things to happen, and the writing would also jump from being super purple prosy to in your face southern redneck style where she'd be like, wow, these young whippersnappers over here. Legit line in the book. So it was just really jarring, and the plot was pretty flimsy to begin with. It also the world building, while there were some parts where I was interested, it would just end. You would be into something and then it wouldn't be explained further, or things would be dropped in and nothing was explained. So it just wasn't an enjoyable experience for me. And despite me being the co-host of the book club, I came to book club saying that I didn't read it. And I probably wouldn't have been alone if not for the fact that my book club members just have more willpower to go through terrible books. I give them all the props, but it was just a DNF. I wouldn't recommend it personally, but I'm sure there's an audience for it. And one of our, I think 5 members that were there that day said that they enjoyed it, and a second member read the entire series. That member said that it wasn't good, but kept reading them anyway. So there must have been something worthwhile to keep reading them. So now that my DNF's out of the way, I also read The House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This was a gothic horror young adult book, and I really liked it. I think I would probably give it a 4-star. It was a really solid read. It was creepy. It was eerie. There were descriptions of some body horror. It was this whole idea of these 3 sisters who went missing for about a month when they were children, and when they were returned, things were never quite normal again for them. But despite this and kind of the weird, creepy, supernatural stuff that happens with them, nobody could ever really say for sure. And they've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations because of them being missing. Both that they're kind of infamous for it, but also because of all the weird stuff that follows them. Really recommend this one. I am looking forward to the next book that Crystal Sutherland's putting out. I believe she has a book coming out this year or next year, and it's in the same type of genre. So I am excited to see what her next book's going to be about. Then I finished All's Well by Mona Awad. My dogs are going crazy because why wouldn't they? So this book follows a woman who is a theater person. She becomes a professor at this university, but before the novel starts, she was in an accident on stage where she had fallen off stage and broken her back, and she has had chronic pain and issues since. And as she is really determined to put on All's Well That Ends Well, a Shakespeare play that nobody really wants to do, she starts to convince herself that it is helping her and that she is getting better because of doing this play. And creepy stuff starts to happen, and this is also kind of a gothic tale, and it was super interesting. I actually had no knowledge of what this was going into it, and honestly I'm kind of happy I did because it was weird. I might not have picked it up had I known all the details because it might not have interested me as much, But I also didn't realize that this author wrote Bunny, which I've been pitched before, like via BookTube, and it always sounded interesting to me, and I never picked it up, so I didn't realize this was the same author. I just scolded them, so now they're giving me lots of love, because, you know. These are my babies. These are my children. It's so cute. What are you doing? And this one's my weirdo. So anyway, I really did like this book. It was weird. It was interesting. It was creepy. I would read it and without any kind of more knowledge than I already gave. It was a interesting time. And then the last book that I read in the month of February was Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton. This was his memoir following his adventures from a child getting into the Harry Potter series to play Draco Malfoy, and kind of how that affected him as an actor after the series ended. It was pretty short, and when you listen to it on audio, it is narrated by Tom Felton, and that was pretty cool. So I would suggest doing the audiobook, as I would with most memoirs, because they're oftentimes read by the author. And I really would recommend this for Harry Potter fans personally. I don't think you're going to get anything out of this if you're not connected to the Harry Potter world in some way, or you didn't grow up reading them, because it really focuses the majority of it on that. It gives a little bit of details about his personal life, about like things he's done before Harry Potter. He was one of the only kid actors that had some film experience before this, so that was kind of cool. And then he also talked about the after effect and being in such a big franchise and how things really weren't handed out to him after, and that made it both like more difficult and also kind of a relief for him. But I did enjoy it. I have no quarrels with it. I think I would have liked this maybe later in life from him too, or I would be interested to see, like, you know, if he continued acting and had more to say. But I think for what it was, and given that this was a really heavily Harry Potter narrative, it was exactly what I expected it to be. And that was all the books that I read. Very short and sweet. I only really got through 4, and really, if you want to note that my one was a DNF, I really read 3.5 books. That book, Kiss the Fae, really put me in a slump, and I just couldn't get through any others. I picked up some others. We'll end up talking about those in my March wrap up. So now on to the things that I wrote. So in the month of February, I really started getting back into writing more than I had been. Obviously, if you watched my January wrap up, my house was a mess and things were going crazy in my life. So finally in February, it still took maybe the first 2 weeks to really feel content again, but I got some writing done. The first thing that I will say is the major thing I was working on is I was doing a short story to submit for publication. So the Stygian Society, which is started by 2 author tubers, and I will leave the information down below, they decided to do an anthology that was exclusive to YouTubers, so AuthorTube. Basically, they reached out to a bunch of people and also asked, you know, to spread word of mouth, and they were collecting a bunch of short stories to be able to put in an anthology as their first publication. Now, the Stygian Society is a small press, small indie press, and you can go ahead and submit if you have manuscripts and stuff like that to them directly, but this was exclusively an anthology, and I just decided to take that as the note that the universe was telling me to submit. That was a goal of mine this year, was to submit 5 to 10 different publications somewhere, whether that was short stories or poetry. And I did it. I completed the short story. It was technically like a rewrite, but it was a really, really terrible first draft that I wrote about 10 years ago. So I took the original idea and made it much better. And I did that. I got my feedback. I did my edits. I submitted it. So the day that you're going to see this, I will likely have been made aware if my piece is going to be included in the anthology, but as of now, I am still in limbo waiting. But that was the biggest thing that happened in February. The short story took up most of my time, but I also made some progress in other ways. I continued to work in Project Mermaid, which is my dark fantasy for adults. I got a few chapters done, but then I ended up kind of taking a pause so I could focus on the short story. So we're still making headway. It's just slow going. Additionally, I also wrote in my rom-com, and as far as the co-written stuff goes, I have finished my characters' chapters. So I'm just waiting on my co-writer to finish the last chapter, which we probably will end up doing together to make sure that my ideas in my character's last chapter align with hers. But we're essentially done. I can't say we officially finished the rom-com, but I finished my stuff in the rom-com, which made me feel really good. I feel accomplished. I have also been doing some critique partnering where I've been exchanging my time and their time. So we're each reading our manuscripts, and as much as I want to say that like I'm ahead on that, I am not. And I hope to God that my critique partner doesn't hate me. But I am enjoying like what I'm reading, and I'm hoping that my feedback is valuable. I should be caught up hopefully soon with where I'm supposed to be, but I at least read another 2 chapters in the month of February for them. And that's really all the writing I did, short and sweet. And then lastly, for my personal life, I feel like somebody else said that February was like so long, but it's also a very short month. And I look back to like what happened in February, and I think that's pretty true for me too, because I kind of completely forgot everything I did, even though I did some pretty cool things. For Valentine's Day, so the weekend right before Valentine's Day, me and my husband's brother and his girlfriend all went to medieval times together. It was a bit of a drive. We had to go, it's not local to us. We had to take like a 2-hour drive to get there. But it was a really fun time, and truthfully, like I had been to medieval times once as a kid, and I don't really remember it very much other than we were on the Blue Knight team, and that was pretty cool, but I had nothing really to remember. So I honestly got really emotional going there. I was just like, I feel like a kid again. Like, I feel like this is great. I'm just so excited to be here. So I like would cry over everything, literally. Like, I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. But other than going to medieval times, I really didn't do a ton in February, except for like a smattering of like small things. Like I went to book club, I went to writing club. I just tried to do minimal things, to be honest, in February. I really wanted to recuperate basically my mental health and my soul, because your girl was not doing great this past month. I'm not as bad as I was last year, but like I was just going so much in January, and I was like, this is not how I wanted my year to start. So I did try to take some time for myself. I did Lemurian crystal healing, which is basically, it's a form of, you know, trying to realign yourself and cleanse the negative energies in yourself. People would be similar with Reiki, I think, but this is a different type of energy healing, and it's more Eastern than Western. I did that, and that was pretty cool, and I had a little bit of that in my vlog, so I will link that above. And really, I've just been actually focusing more on my goals overall. So I started doing these like checklists essentially that I got in an owl crate, I think 2 years ago, and they sat around. But I've been doing my weekly habit tracker on these, and basically my goal has been to work out 3 times a week for at least 30 minutes, writing at least 3 hours total a week, studying for 2 hours total, read or listen to my book a little bit each day. There was no parameters to say like I had to listen for an hour, I had to read for an hour. It was just I wanted to read every day. And I wanted to do my tarot pull, so pulling a card every day to kind of see like what my goals or what my alignment should be for that day. And truthfully, I was not doing very good. The first week of February, which was like the end of January, first week of February, I barely got any. The second week of February, I hit my writing goal, which was nice. I read 4 days of the week, and I pulled my tarot card 4 days of the week, but I didn't study at all, and I didn't work out at all. The third week of February, the 12th to the 18th, was awful. I worked out once. I wrote once. I studied none. I listened to my book 3 days, and I pulled my tarot card once. So I don't know what the heck happened that week, but that was just a bad week, I guess. And then we started to finally get somewhere as the end of the month came. So the 19th to the 25th, I didn't work out at all that week, but I read every single day. I pulled my tarot card almost every day. I studied for the first time all month, and I also wrote. So I was feeling pretty good. And then we ended it on a very good note. So February 26th to March 4th, which is, you know, the end of February. So for the last couple days of February, I read every day. I pulled my tarot card every day. I wrote for 2 hours, I worked out once, and I also studied for a few minutes. It wasn't a ton, it was like 20 minutes, but I did pretty good. So overall, I'm feeling again renewed for March, that like I ended the month on a good note, and I feel like going into March I'm gonna just keep making those daily habits better of mine. So overall, I have had a pretty boring month, but I'm pretty content with it. I had some really good writing days, and then some days where I mostly sat and kind of stared at my screen. I had a lot of really heavy days with my day job, so that kind of wiped me out quite a bit when it came to trying to do creative endeavors. But I know that the next couple months are going to be bringing some good stuff for me. I'm going to have some breaks in there. I'm going to have vacation coming up in 3 months. So I'm very excited to see where everything goes. But for now, February has ended and it was relatively calm in my book. So let me know down below what you did in February. What was your best read of the month? What are some of your writing accomplishments? Or just let me know anything exciting that happened for you. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.